Hi, I'm here with Dr. Mandy Johnson, the principal of Castleman Creek Elementary, and we are going to go over some questions about the campus improvement plan for our particular campus. So, Mandy, we can
Yes.
start out talking about how do we obtain a consensus across campus when we look at creating a CIP?
To be honest, that's been sort of one of the challenges, as a new leader coming into a school where um, we had a high turnover that first year, and trying to build a CIP from that has been a little bit difficult and a little bit tricky. Just this year, I formed a kind of an advisory group, I should say, that's going to help in the end, develop the CIP going
Mm-hmm.
into next year. Last year we didn't have that as much, and we had to use the ideas from our leadership team and the teacher leaders that we had. So we're trying to grow the capacity of the school and their knowledge for what we need here to get more of like a site-based consensus, which is what would be more appropriate. So like setting up some type of democratic system where people have more of a voice and say for what our campus really needs, and that way there's more of a buy-in to meeting the goals that we set for this school. And going into year three, I think we'll be ready for that. So at the end of the year, what we'll do is we'll take the current goals, and of course we don't have the STAR data until June to really make a lot of those decisions on, but I think we can pretty much base it on the year before, and base our campus goals and set SMART goals accordingly.
Okay. So, do you feel that our campus has any kind of need to create a needs assessment or start from scratch in that way, or would you look more at the current CIP and adjust it according to how we need to move in the future?
I don't think we have to start from scratch. When Mr. Glazeman and I came in, we looked at the current CIP, and it was vast, and a lot of the goals that they had were not relevant. So we took those off and replaced them with some new goals that we felt like the school needed according to data, the instructional goals. And so, yeah, I don't think that we need to go back and start over or do a needs assessment plan like from scratch. I think what we would need to do is take the one we have now and go over it like with a fine tooth comb to see, because I feel like we have made a lot of progress this year. So we need to go and see how we're performing now, and where we need to be, and how we need to get there. And so I think it's going to be important for that team to go back and study the current goals, the current needs assessment, which is now from last year, and make sure everything is still one of those needs. And if it's a need, then we need to address it somewhere within our plan, under one of the goals, and create an objective and strategy for that.
Okay. So, do you feel like when you came in that the campus had buy-in currently to the current CIP, or do you feel like there was not as much knowledge about that? And how do you plan on using the advisory committee to get more of the buy-in and create more of the knowledge about what our CIP actually is?
I think when I first came in, there was a group of people, a collective amount of people that knew about the CIP, and perhaps maybe there was a joint effort in creating some of the goals that were on there. I don't think that there was buy-in because the goals were created in such a way that it was more collaborative, and data analysis, and studying and exploring all of that to as some of the strategies, and we didn't feel like that was going on the way that it should have been. So I don't believe that the CIP was carried out, in the way that it's supposed to be. And even today, I don't think that we're quite there yet because we don't have that system in place where it's solid, and that's where we're having to work on that as well, to make sure that we have something more systematic, so that teams can sit down and study, and make changes as necessary. Have this document be like a living Bible, sort of, and constantly living by that. And I think that comes with changing the culture here,
Yeah.
and the goals that we put down be something that the whole school knows, and they share in that belief of getting the outcome that we set for ourselves. And so that's what I'm hoping through this advisory committee, that they bring us things that are already out there that they see, that need to be addressed in that needs assessment plan, as well as help look at the current one and study that and see where we can go from here.
Okay. Good things to know. So looking at the current goals, the current learning goals of our CIP,
Uh-huh.
what, what kind of strategies are we using to address those?
Okay.
And how do we think we're going to address them in the future or change anything about what's going on in the future with those?
Well, the academic one is pretty broad, and there's a lot there's a lot that it entails. Like I'm looking at the first one, meet the academic, social, spiritual, and physical needs of a diverse student population. Our objective, one of those objectives, is teaching to the depth and complexity to ensure grade level success. And in doing that, CCE students will perform in the top quartile for domains 1 through 3 on the 2018 STAR assessment. And so that one is pretty huge. Definitely, we have the date down there to complete this by 2018, and we hope that we are able to get there. Some of the things that we looked at in meeting that, like strategies to carry out, was like provide a supplemental reading program. Because when I first came, there was no rhyme or reason to the library system as it was, and kids were checking out books. Not particular. They were more books like by interest, which is a good thing, but they weren't taking in consideration that also they need to be reading on their reading levels, and there was no way to monitor that. And so we purchased through our title budget at the time, Accelerated Reader, which is a program that helps progress monitor the students and teaches them how to kind of be self-accountable for like their reading growth. And what we're hoping will come from that would be like for student and teacher conferences, and being able to grow fluency, which was another area that, according to TPI, our school is really weak on. And so, and then also, if you can increase the fluency and accuracy, the comprehension will go up, and therefore you have a better reading program altogether, or reading results altogether. So we purchased that as a supplemental program. And then also through WinTime, providing research-based supports and resources, which we are still working on there, getting back to where it's not just content-based, but more skills-based. And so RTI will become a goal. Just looking at the campus needs right now, I can tell you we'll go back to that advisory committee and say we need to really look at RTI and how it's functioning now, or even lack thereof in some ways, and what we can do to make that stronger, and provide the research supports that we need to use during intervention time. And then we also we have purchased the flexible and collaborative spaces outside the classroom walls, and our hope was to help enrich students in those kind of areas. It has become to an intervention space because we are growing. We're at capacity here at Castleman. So that too, we were hoping that we can do a lot of more like inquiry type learning out there with their peers, with teacher facilitators out there, and that's still a dream that we want to see happen and come to fruition. It's starting to, like that movement is, but it just is not. It hasn't met what we're looking for yet. According to what we have for the objective and the goal. And then just educating the third grade staff on the STAR domain, third and fourth grade. I'm sorry, staff on the STAR domain levels like 1 through 3, and continually discussing strategies that will help those groups of students meet the campus needs. And then we also, something new that we've done, and we've just had a big push, is growth mindset. And inside that growth mindset, we're having students set their own academic growth based on like checkpoints, or sometimes just CFAs, depending on the grade level and what they're using to monitor. And so I feel like that has helped a lot. You can see huge gains in the grade levels that are using it more efficiently, and also like really doing that peer conferencing. I think in our fourth grade area, the teachers that are really honing in on student growth have made the best progress here so far. And I think you can also see it like in our kinder students and somewhat our first grade students too. A couple of the teachers that are using it really well down there, you can see growth like in accelerated reader and their reading levels, which is good. We just have to continue to make strides in that and move it across the board. And then again, I talked about continuing the win time. Let's see, as I'm looking through here, we also wanted to provide opportunities for our pre-K 4 teachers to experience high quality PD over research-based strategies that will help core content and help in core content areas, including technology and innovation. I think we've done a great job on the technology and innovation part. I think right now, because we've been really focusing on relationships at the school, that we haven't done as much on the instructional side of that. So like providing that kind of PD. And as we've talked about before, too, with you, Kristen, just like that will be kind of that
the next
move,
step,
you know, after this year's completed, and maybe even prior to that to get it started. I think one of the ways that we're going to be able to do that better this year is through our teacher leader group. You know, we have some new ones that will be coming on, and we're going to be able to really talk about the needs, like going back to that campus needs assessment, looking at our needs, what are the PD, you know, what are some professional development areas that we have deficits in, like for specific grade levels, because I think our teachers are at so many different levels, and so not all grade levels need the same thing across the board. And so looking at some different ways that we can meet grade level needs, like specifically, instead of doing things globally as a campus, will help. And then just, let's see. Sorry, I'm looking down through all of these. Like I mentioned earlier, too, I think another thing that was really very helpful this year, and through some meetings with the teachers that I've been having individually, one of the things that resonates more than anything has been a positive cultivating a positive culture of growth mindset. And that was something that we struggled with in the very beginning, like how to really start that. Do we, you know, use our leadership team and do like a book study for a year ourselves, or do we just dive in? And, you know, looking back, you know, we made a decision to let's just dive in, because it's one of those areas that you can, you know, start off broad and then narrow it down. And I think that was such a needed thing here on this campus that I really feel like that can attribute, if there's, you know, a lot of growth here, it's due to us really focusing in on honing in on some of the growth mindset things that we're doing, such as the book study and just conversations in general.
You can tell there's been a difference that we focused on it and come together as a campus to really learn about it. I mean, I was impressed that we had 30 staff members that wanted to participate, and it was an optional book study for us to do together, and it's been a good cohesive group that's been doing it. So just looking at goal 2, the provide influential role models through the recruitment and retention of highly qualified faculty and staff. How do you, what's the best way that you feel you can address that situation?
Effective teachers?
Yes, and the retention of them. And then what, I guess the other follow-up question to that is more like, once you do have them on campus, what are some things that you want them to do to become even more highly qualified?
Yeah, as we work through that is, to me, that's the number one thing. You know, I mean, like, for student growth, you have to, you know, build relationships. For teacher growth, you have to hire the right people. And because if you don't, like, your school can become very stagnant. And so in hiring, you have to look at people that are vulnerable and that do admit to having their weaknesses, and you look for coachability and for, you know, positive attitudes. Because I do believe that most people can grow and skill, you know, in any content area. Because if you have the attitude of a teacher, and you love what you do, then you're going to be able to teach that person how to teach. And it may just take some time. And I think you can identify those people quite readily. Those are the people that just show up at events, or they're really, you don't even have to worry so much about their PD as much because they're worried about their own growth. Those people just shine through. And so, like, the hard part is, the person you're interviewing sitting across the table, are they that person, in true sense? Because sometimes they sit across and give like a really great interview, and you may even have references that check out. But when you get them inside the school, they show a different side of them.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the hardest parts to this job, is balancing how you deal with people that don't function because of attitude, and not put the fear in the rest of the campus when you're having to, like, do the steps it takes to not have that person on campus anymore. It's one of those things that's very hard, I think, as a leader, because people's the human side of them and the heart, like, no matter if they're for or against that person, that teacher, they're always going to, teachers have heart, and so that's hard to be that type of leader with the courage to, like, try to push that person to a different bus because maybe they don't fit the vision here, or maybe their vision doesn't fit our vision here, and so that's very tough. And I think educators in general, like, appreciate when you do that, but at the time walking through it, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Because teachers have heart for the most part. But if you don't do that, then your teachers will never, the ones that work hard will never have that successful feel, because you have people that are resistant and holding them back.
Yeah, too much.
As far as PD, I think, again, you have to make that very situational. Like, continuing their growth, you have to be intentional. It has to be situational. You can do, like, do the inventories to see kind of where teachers feel safe to give, like, where they feel like their weak areas are, and base them on that. Or you can just ask them, or watch them through observation and develop plans in that way. I love the models now where there's more choice given, although it is very tough to do that. Time is very hard too. You've got to be intentional with your time. This year, I feel like all of our time, all of our faculty meetings have been going through the vertical house teams that we created, and so that they can present together. I think that it's served its purpose, and helping us to build relationships and talk about stress, and things like that. But it's not something that we can keep long term, because we need to get into more meaty areas.
More of the instructional piece.
Yeah.
So one of our strategies that we have down for Goal 2 is to provide professional development related to students living in impoverished conditions or coming from low socioeconomic households. How do you feel we have addressed that so far this year? I know one of our first house PD did address that with a teacher's personal story and how teachers and schooling affected her, and I think that was really powerful. So how do we feel that we've continued that discussion and awareness on our campus?
Yeah, I don't think that we've done, like, the best of job, like, with maintaining that professional development. I think what we have done a good job that would fit into that category would be going back to the growth mindset study and talking about kids in general and believing in them. Creating a vision of CCE pride here, doing things like with the kids, like the little video that we just created, making kids feel safe and secure, and this is their family environment where they feel like they want to be here, and plugging them in somewhere where, kids that generally wouldn't be a part of, like, a club or committee now are a part of, like, a club or committee. And we definitely have a long road ahead of us to still, do that too. But I think this school does a pretty good job of, like, trying to make all kids feel like they have a sense of belonging here. Are we perfect, or at a level where we feel like it's really even good yet? No, I don't think we're even close. I don't know how you would ever get to that point of perfection with something like that. But I think we have to we have to continue to search for ways in which to grow in that area, a diversity, because even with the new housing and things going up and the projections stating that, we may level off a little bit, we still have those kids that are unique to those demographics. And
Right.
so we've got to find ways to, explore how we can meet and serve them better. But overall, I feel like in this past year, just looking at discipline and how we handle some of the children that are from those lower socioeconomic homes, I feel like we're doing a much better job. Our discipline referrals this year are way down.
Right.
We have a cluster of kids that we see on a regular basis. I say we, meaning like the office. I'm talking about like 6, 7, maybe 8 normal, regular kids. But the rest of the issues are handled within the classroom and the teams. And so I think just open conversations have helped with that. I think our behavior coach has taken the time to really, been very patient and with our AP about like just giving the justification behind it and why that's important and some of the trauma that these kids face and why they may be reacting that way. I think some of that has changed some of the ways in which we work with our kids too.
Oh yeah,
but we definitely need to look for more ways to bring that into our school for sure.
Yeah. So we've talked about some of the goals and the strategies that we've used in there. So how do you handle change when it comes about, whether in the CIP or on campus, if we have a dramatic change throughout the year, or we know there's going to be big changes coming in the next year? How do you handle that and regarding what our plan is for the future?
Well, very carefully. I think one area that I've really grown in is not making hasty decisions, because I think coming in sometimes, you want to just fix it. And so you've seen things that have been fixed before and you try to slap that solution onto the issue, and that can come back to burn you.
Yeah.
I think you have to really think things through. So anytime you have a change, for instance, I think our biggest one this year that was the need to change the master schedule. And that's still a huge need.
Right.
And that has been very tough for me to because again, I want to go back to my habit of well, let's just do it.
Yeah.
But I think what I did for myself this year is really just hold myself back and think, but all of the what ifs, and, looking at pros and cons of doing something, what could the pros be versus what are all of the challenges we might face if we do that, and is it worth it?
Right.
And in the long run, in the end, we decided not to do that change, because change is scary for people. Change is good, though, as well, but I think change is a process and change takes time. Some things that are just fires that are burning, where kids' safeties are concerned, or there's a teacher that's really not, the kids are really falling further and further.
Right.
Those are your fires, and change needs to happen instantly. Sometimes, and we've had this to happen this year, where you may have to let somebody go mid-year. It's a fire because, you're trying to protect your environment in some type of way. Those kind of changes can be very upsetting. They always are, no matter what, because you can't give give the details about the situation. That kind of change scares people because they think, what if it's me? What am I doing? Maybe I'm doing something the same, and you can't divulge that information. So those, so I think change is one of those things that is so hard, because I think we react and people respond situationally to any type of change. And so I think you really have to have a collaborative effort of many people to, some being devil's advocate, to see if you're ready for what that change is, or if your school can withstand it, and that's a hard question to ask, because it's so based on many different factors.
Yeah, right. It'll be different every time a change occurs.
But I think, I don't know. I can't say that we are we are good with change.
Yeah.
I can say, as I think this may be a teacher thing, and our educators, including myself, that we just are not fantastic with change. Yeah. We like stability.
And we like control.
And we like control.
Yeah.
So it's it's given up a lot of that,
Right.
and going through that process, and it's a faith kind of walk. It's not a you don't know what's going to happen on the other side, and that can be scary.
That can be. So, looking at our goals so far this year and thinking about it being February, how do you feel we've progressed in meeting what we've set out to meet, and how do you feel that our strategies have impacted us in making those decisions?
I think that for the most part, I would say that I feel good. I can't say I feel great, about things because I think we have a lot of room to grow academically. We still have a lot of room to grow, like even in our mindset. Like even through PLCs, we've got trying to work. We're still in the baby step phase of walking through that, but we're not doing things. I think the best yet, but I think overall, I'm satisfied with our progress. Up to this point, I'm not satisfied with, looking down the road at where I think we can be. I think we can be a lot, looking 3 years ahead. I think we can really do some great things here. I think some of, motivation I feel is out there. It's growing, Definitely we have some teachers that are more motivating than others. I think in the areas of instruction, though, we have a lot of gains that we still need to make. Just looking at our checkpoint data compared like district-wide, I think we have a lot of room to grow. I think we have the capacity here. We have strength. It's like now we got to find a way to really work together to make it all just really happen. I think if we worked hard, if we're looking at district standings and we have 6 elementary schools, we usually sit 4, 5, or 6 depending on what we're testing and what grade level we're testing. But I do think we can be one of those 2 or 3 schools. With our major one being at the top, right now is that attainable? I think I would. I would be lying to say yes, that's an attainable goal of ours right now. But I do think it's attainable to reach that 3rd spot, 2nd spot, and not looking at it competitively, looking at it like, what can we do to raise our student achievement? And I think stretching us is probably going to be our next thing, to grow by stretching and believing in ourselves, believing in the people that we teach with, and utilizing the spirit of one, which sometimes we neglect to do, looking at things as a family instead of an isolated classroom family, but looking at it as a school family. So, overall, like the climate, I feel has changed. Now there are days when I'm like, has it really? But overall, I do feel like by getting some new people on the bus last year, I think that's helped. I think the mindset study has helped even change some people that were here that may have had a difficult mindset or more of a fixed mindset in the beginning. I can see that that's changing now. We're growing in those areas.
Right.
And I think that's showing up, in the attitudes of kids. It's showing up in the attitudes of people, the paraprofessionals here, leadership, just across the board. But yeah, I think so. Overall, I'm pretty happy. But I hate to say that this is where we want to stay,
right?
Because it's not. This is a turning point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So my last question just focuses a little bit on Title I funds because we are a Title I campus. So how are the decisions made about how to spend that throughout the CIP, and how much of that do you really use and put into the strategies that we have written in there?
All the funding that we get has to be recorded in your CIP 100%. So, how is that determined to use? We look at the goals that we have created and look at the strategies, and then those strategies that, like, especially personnel, you may have, like, for instance, behavior coach to help fix some of the issues that we're having with, some of our children. That costs a whole teacher's salary. So when you get the number, it looks pretty big, but when you start looking at personnel, that's pretty big too. So that takes, a lot of our budget. I would say probably 75% of our title goes into our personnel, and then we have about 25% left to spend, like, on different strategies that we do have in our CIP. Most of the money goes towards instruction. We spend probably about $1,500 on parental involvement.
Okay.
But I would say a majority of it goes on like instructional programs. Of course, personnel. That's
The big one.
That's the big one. But the majority of the leftover funds would go like into programs or like the mentoring
Right.
minds books that
the
we
books
bought,
that we're
consumable
buying.
things. We have put a little bit of that money into like flex furniture for intervention. Anything that's at risk. I mean, we can use that money on. So Title I does have a little bit of red tape that's attached to it, and that it does have to be in the campus improvement plan, and you have to keep track of it. Anytime you change or move that money around, it has to also reflect change in your campus improvement plan. So it's kind of monitored, I guess, in a different way. But we are, I should say we are, as a school, very blessed to get that money because it really affords us extra opportunities that some schools that are very close to us in demographics don't have because they don't have that extra money.
Right. So is there anything, looking at the CIP and our goals in the future, is there any different way that you would want to spend it, or do you have any ideas moving forward in the future how you would want to allocate the money?
Yeah, I think I think we're at a point to where we can invest more in PD.
PD, okay.
Yeah, whether it's inside training, outside, like going and visit other campuses, or like we were talking about yesterday, like the professional learning community training, which is pretty expensive.
Right.
Also, like at the personnel meeting that I have coming up, I will learn like personnel staff. What is my personnel going to be here next year, and how many pairs I'm going to be able to afford, and that way going into when we have to create the budget in April, I'll have a better understanding of like, can I afford extra people?
Right.
Because what I've always learned is that you put your money into your human resources first, and then, but I do feel like we're going to have to reserve some for PD. That I really want to focus on like getting our RTI programs functioning correctly, our PLC meetings going to where teachers and us on the leadership team feel like they're connecting, and they're working for the better good of our school, and just putting our money to where like the best outcome for our kids are going to be seen. So like I'm thinking we probably need to look at especially when we create the campus improvement plan, which will be next August, September. Looking at the STAR data and seeing, letting that, some of the data drive some of those decisions we make as well. So we may start off with something in the CIP, but then it could change based on needs or new needs, or who knows, new people. I think one of the things I learned this year, having so many new people, we probably need to invest in them a little more, like some of this title money into their professional growth or resources that they might need to help grow them, or people that can help, because that's been pretty tough. And then moving away from some of the other things that we have currently, like money for the collaborative spaces, things that we may not
now that they're filled.
Yes. And so we can kind of re-examine that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for answering the questions.
Yeah.
And giving me a little bit of insight on that.
You're so welcome.